One warm and dry Saturday in the middle of summer, Clara was eyeing her smartphone with an intense glare. Around her, her friends Logan, Francis, and Kim pushed her slightly, peeking at the screen over her shoulder. "Come on," Kim insisted, poking Clara in the ribs with his index and middle fingers. "Say yes, it's going to be fun." "You all know I don't do well in, any sort of scary stuff." Clara's frown deepened as she read the words escape room over and over again on her phone. It was a promotional poster for one, themed around slasher movies and fictitious serial killers. When she was younger, Clara had been obsessed with a series of horror B-movies that almost no one remembered. Then 3D came, and it became too real for her, even if the special effects were less than stellar. Frances got in her view, casting her usual puppy dog eyes. "Pretty please, my cousin already got us pay one get two tickets promo. We need you." Clara sighed and nodded. She went along begrudgingly, forcing her mind to remain steady. One bus ride later, she was facing a pair of tall wooden doors with cables and a couple of screens on the side. The screens broadcasted the insides of the room, which was dark, except for a meager light coming from the flashlights that people inside held. There was a tall, lanky boy inside that jumped and screamed his heart out when something that looked like a book fell to the floor. After that, the screens went completely dark. Logan laughed at her side while Kim and Francis bought the tickets. "Amateurs," he turned to Clara. "It'll be fine. It's not my first rodeo," he said in his characteristic Midwestern drawl. Clara cringed. No one says that anymore. Lance's mouth hung open, ready to reply, when their other two friends approached. An older guy dressed in an orange uniform and wearing a baseball cap backwards followed them. He was Francis's cousin, and after a brief explanation of the instructions and the 1-hour time limit that Clara failed to grasp as she was shaking like a leaf, they were led inside the darkness. Their phones were left outside, locked in a small box to avoid any of them cheating. "Wait," Clara said the moment the door closed behind their backs. "Flashlights. Francis, your cousin didn't give us flashlights." "Maybe finding them is part of the experience." Kim's silhouette, thanks to the sliver of light that came from beneath the door, was patting an ancient dresser. "There, I've got something." A flicking sound led to a burst of warm orange light coming from his fingers. Kim had found a lighter, and its flame danced under the combined strength of their stressed breathing. They took turns trying to pull on closed drawers and looking under furniture. Lance eventually found a notebook with words written backwards, and Francis located a hidden number panel behind a dusty mirror. When Clara took hold of the notebook, she realized it was sticky with something obscure and slimy. The substance smelled metallic, and she wiped her hands off of it on her pants. The pages were dirty too, filled with reddish scribbles that seemed to say "no" in big, bold letters. She turned the pages until she located a series of numbers written backwards. The lighter offered enough light to recognize the numbers as a whole, but it was only when Francis pulled a flashlight from under the dresser that they could read them properly. 735. Logan pressed the appropriate buttons on the panel as Clara read them out loud. Nothing happened, and Clara repeated them. "Maybe these are for a different puzzle? But that doesn't make sense. This is the only panel we found," she said, frustrated with her voice quavering in the dark. Before anyone else replied to her, a short, rumbling moan resonated in the room. Clara whimpered. Kim did too. Francis? Was that you?" Her friend shook her head besides Clara. "No. Lance?" She pointed at him with the flashlight. The young man shook his head too. The moan returned, stronger this time. This room is scarier than I thought. It sounds like it's coming from... Clara grabbed Francis's hand and directed the light to a dark corner. There was a figure trembling there, crouched and covered in the gooey substance Clara had found earlier. Now, she could see what it was in all its red glory. Blood, sliding down the figure's entire body. It raised its head, revealing a terribly human face, albeit morphed by the most extreme expression of terror Clara had ever seen in her life. It seemed to be a woman crying, her gaping mouth downwards. The woman wailed, and the four friends screamed back at her. The woman stood on a pair of almost infinite legs. Her arms were equally long, and her fingers scraped the floor with their long, dirty nails. She took a step forward, still screaming and with her hair cascading over her shoulders. In one of her hands, she held a knife. They rushed for the door, hitting it and crying out to Francis's cousin. Suddenly, the door opened and they fell onto the floor in a pile. Before Francis's cousin could question them, the other three hurriedly closed the door and screamed at him to lock it so the woman wouldn't escape. "That's too real, man. Too real even for me," Logan said breathlessly. "That chick is gonna give me nightmares. Oof, great effects anyway." "What chick? There isn't supposed to be anyone in there but you guys inside. I hit the walls from the other side here and there and play some sounds, but that's it." Francis tried to blubber something out while Kim and Logan argued with him. He pointed to one of the screens beside the door. The room was empty. Clara realized that she'd never seen the previous group get out of the room. When she asked about it, Francis's cousin bemusedly replied that they were the first group of the day. She never returned to an escape room after that.
Subscribe today, or beware.